Well, hello friends, Coach Bob with you today, and today we're going to be talking about the new CanAm Canyon. You know, the Canyon is the adventure-styled Spyder that's out there. I know most of you have seen pictures of it. I actually had an opportunity to put my hands on one when I was at the DeLand Spyder Rally. I really wanted to let this sink in just a little bit with my thoughts on it. So what we're going to do, initially we're just going to talk about specifications. And then after the specifications, I'm going to get on the seat of Sky and we're going to talk about my thoughts on styling cues and quirks and things that I foresee as possibly being weak spots, and maybe even in spots that I'm like, maybe these engineers, let's see if they've thought about things that I might not have thought about, and they've headed some of these problems off at the past. So, but I do have a lot of thoughts on it. So, but before we get going, if you would, do me a favor, give the video a big old fat thumbs up, share it with your friends, all that jazz. I really, really would appreciate it. If you see the office looks a little different, I've done some rearranging in here. I'll be changing the background pretty soon. The picture looks a little busy, but yeah, I'm sure you can handle it. The first thing we're going to do is talk about specifications for the Canyon and compare them to something that we recognize as a specification that is kind of in our heart, one that we put our hands on, we've tasted, we've smelt, we dealt with, done that sort of thing. For example, we'll be comparing the amount of storage capacity you have on the new Canyon versus an RT Limited, that sort of thing. But the first thing we're going to do is talk about the power plant. The power plant is the same. It is the 1330 Rotax, 115 horsepower and 96 pound-feet of torque. So we're not talking about an enormous amount of power, but I believe it's going to be enough power when you get on the trail and you get to doing things on the trail. It does have tires that are designed for this specifically, but we'll get into that in a moment. But this is an on-off-road machine, so it's going to be very interesting. And when I'm referring to this, I'm going to be talking about the very top of the line, the Red Rock Edition, because I don't want to get caught up into, well, you know, this has this, this has that. Let's compare it to an RT Limited, which is an upper echelon Spyder. Another thing you're going to find in common with the Spyder is the very fact that it has the 6-speed semi-automatic transmission with reverse, just like the Spyder has. So that sort of stuff, as far as the functionality of the transmission and the engine, it's going to be the same. So let's talk suspension. The suspension is significantly different. It looks different. It feels different. Now, I sat on this thing. It's stiff. Now, when I say it's stiff, anyone who's ever ridden an adventure motorcycle understands the very nature of it. It has to be a stiff suspension. So it's tall. That's another thing. It really sits tall. When you're up on it, you're going to be able to see around you, and others are going to be able to see you. I really do like that aspect of it. But on the front, it has KYB Smart Shocks, and it has the air adjustable rear suspension, just like the RT would have. So let's talk storage capacity. With just over 31 gallons of storage capacity on the new Canyon Red Rock, the CanAm Spyder RT has 47 gallons. So that's significant. Now, do I think that that is a problem for an adventure type of motorcycle? I don't. I don't even think it's a problem for a touring motorcycle. That is still gobs and gobs and gobs of storage. Is it different? Does it look different? Yes, it does. There are also other storing options on the Red Rock where you can lash things to it. There are attachment points. So for things like tents and things like that, you're going to have tons of storage, but secure storage, you're going to have less. The other thing is the saddlebags are actual saddlebags now. They're made of aluminum. They are detachable, so you can carry them into your hotel room, into your tent, into your campsite, into your house when you get done with the trip. That sort of thing makes riding around kind of nice. You don't have all that stuff on there. So that part of it is really, really nice. We'll talk about the ease of attachment and detachment later, but the saddlebags are completely different and they work different, but I think they're more packable because of the way they close and the way they work. You may be giving up some gallons of storage, but I think functionally the space is more usable. So let's talk about the load weight. That's the amount of weight that you, your passenger, and gear. Now on the CanAm Spyder, it is 494 pounds. So almost 500 pounds you can carry on the Spyder with you and another rider. So let's do the math. If you weigh 210 pounds and your wife weighs 190, you've got 400 pounds on there already. That leaves you a lot of room for a lot of gear. Now, the Red Rock though, what a difference. Weight load, 617 pounds. Now the reason the load weight is so high on this is because they know you're going to be carrying a tent, maybe an ice chest with water in it, an ice chest with food in it. When you go camping, you're going to be able to have all of this stuff on there. And normally on an adventure motorcycle, it's just one individual, which means you're never going to even approach the load capacity on this thing. You're just not. It really is pretty amazing how much you can carry on it. Both of them have a tow weight of 400 pounds. That's like the little trailers. Although, you know, if you're going off-road, you're not going to be pulling a trailer. But on-road, if you're using it to tour, which by the way, you can, I think that's plenty. Fuel capacity is almost identical, 7.1 gallons on the Red Rock, 7 gallons on the new Spyders. So that's pretty much the same. The wheelbase is less than an inch difference, so there's nothing significant to discover there. Now, talking about the geometry of it, while we're talking about all of the capacities and loads and all of that, I was really surprised to find the Canyon is shorter in length and in height, but actually it's about an inch wider. So in length, it's about 11 inches shorter. In width, it's 1 inch wider. And in height overall, because you're measuring to the top of the windshield, it's just about an inch shorter. The thing that surprised me, I thought looking at it, just when your visual acuity says that it's narrower, it feels narrower when you're looking at it, but it really isn't. It's an inch wider, which I think is necessary because when you're off camber, that is going to keep you from flipping it. It obviously comes with all of the CanAm amenities, the big 10.25 inch display, all of your CarPlay and that sort of stuff. But there are changes. It does have a sport mode, a rally mode, all-road mode, and then a customizable mode. It's going to be very interesting to see how these things feel in different terrain. I really want to ride one. It also has a belt drive. The belt drive is a point of contention for me. We'll talk about that in a little while. But it does have a belt drive, but it has a belt guard that has been specifically designed to protect it off-road. It has a radiator guard, a small windshield that's adjustable but manually. There's no electronic adjustment on the windshield. Has hand guards like a regular adventure bike. It has some pegs. The pegs have rubber pieces on the top of it. It looks to me like those rubber pieces, you really can't remove them. I would like to see those removable so you could pop them off and pop them back on, because when you're in a real slippery situation, you want to have something metal under that boot. But the other thing it has that I find very interesting, has a nice handlebar riser so that you feel you're more vertical. You really sit up on this thing, and I really, really like that. It has a front skid plate, which I think is a little lacking, but we'll talk about that while we're riding. Has a comfort seat and a backup camera. So there are your facts, your figures with some video in there for good measure. So let's get on the Sea to Sky and talk about the 2025 CanAm Canyon Red Rock Edition. All right, so let's talk about that darn canyon, man. Wow, I'm gonna tell you first off, there's going to be some controversial things said here, so go ahead and grab your cup of coffee and get your stiff neck ready. Nah, it ain't going to be that controversial. All right, let's talk about the two big things that I heard discussed when I was at the rally that were discussed more than anything there. The first one was the looks. Very subjective, but I'm going to tell you, it was overwhelmingly in support. I will say that the styling cues, are straight out of BMW and Triumph, the adventure motorcycles, the European adventure motorcycles. So for people, maybe 10 years ago, this thing would have been perceived as ugly. But now, because people have seen those styling cues over and over again on these adventure motorcycles, which, by the way, is the #1 market in the world as far as motorcycle types, is the adventure motorcycle. So CanAm is on to something, and they took their styling cues from the right places, and that was the adventure world. Why reinvent the wheel is what I say. Even with the color spectrum, that green, the olive drab green, man, that is just beautiful. It looks great. So it looks really cool, I think. I like the way it looks a lot. So as subjective as that is, please share a comment down below. Even if you think it's butt ugly, then say, man, I think it's butt ugly. I want to know, and if you would, share why you think. Maybe it's too boxy or whatever. But the adventure motorcycles are boxy, and they do have that look to them. I love them. I think they're cool. You know, I have one. In fact, you just saw some pictures of mine. So I love the color, I love the style, I love the seating position, that sort of thing. All right, here was the other thing that was, people were very apprehensive about this one, and that is the touring prowess. So, you know, a lot of people are like, well, you know, I mean, on my Spyder, you know, this beautiful CanAm Sea to Sky that BRP gives me the amazing privilege to ride and to share content with you guys about. It is amazing. And this thing, you can tour for days and days and days on this thing, and you can't get more plush than this. You just can't. I don't care what it is, whether it's 2 wheels, 3 wheels. There is nothing more comfortable than a CanAm Spyder RT. They are touring beasts. You can do thousands of miles with ease on these things, day in, day out. So these are real continent crossers. So why would people think that the adventure style, the Canyon, is going to be different? Well, one, the seat is more stiff feeling, and the suspension looks stiff because it sits extremely high. And the windshield is small, which means that you could pick up more buffeting. Now, this is coming from an adventure guy that's ridden motorcycles, so I've never ridden the Canyon, so I can't tell you that all of my findings are going to be 100% accurate. But I will tell you with 95% certainty what it's going to be like. First off, it doesn't need to be a large windshield in order to block the wind off of you. It just needs to be a windshield that is aerodynamically and professionally set up by an engineer. And I believe that the BRP engineers have wind tunneled this thing and paid attention to the detail, just looking at it, the way it has the lower and upper windshield. I believe it's going to really block the wind off of you quite nicely, and it's going to push that wind right up over the top of your head, and you're not going to get a lot of buffeting. I think it's going to be that way. I think it's going to be awesome. Will you be a little more cold if you ride an extremely cold climate? You might be, but it's going to be, I don't even think that's going to be discernible. The other question was the seat. The seat is more stiff and it's more narrow. Now, there are those who would say that's a bad thing. I'm here to tell you I don't believe it is. As a guy who rides adventure motorcycles, the narrow, more firm seat is, to me, is more comfortable overall on my bones than the real soft seat. You know, the soft seat, what it does is it does evenly distribute the weight across your bone structure on your butt and everything, but it's a different kind of feel. For the riding position that you're going to be on this adventure motorcycle, I believe the seat is going to be exactly what is called for. I've done easily 500-600 mile days on my Tiger before, and it was completely comfortable, and the seat feels very similar to my Tiger. It actually feels a little nicer. The materials are more premium. The foam that's in it is more premium foam on the BRP CanAm than it is on my Tiger. But the idea of how it's going to feel, what it's going to, and also the materials look like that if it gets wet and if it gets nasty, it's going to clean up well. I think this thing is going to be a touring beast. One thing you're going to get with those tires, you're going to get more that hum. You're going to get more of that. There's no doubt about that. That is an unavoidable thing. But I believe this thing is going to be a monstrosity. I think it's going to be great on roads, interstates, city streets, trails, I think it's going to be phenomenal. So the styling and the touring prowess, I think, is going to be absolutely top dog in both of those areas, and I can say that without any real worry of it not being so. So let's talk about the quirky janky things, all right? Because there's one quirky janky thing that I saw that I was not a big fan of, and that is, and I know with everything in life, you guys, that as you work with something with your hands and not in a book, that you get to where you can do it like that, because due to muscle memory, and that is the ease or lack thereof of the attachment and detachment of the saddlebags. They're kind of jangly. They're not kind of jangly, they're jangly. They're difficult to get on and off. There's a sequence, and if you get anything out of sequence, you're going to be cussing. You're going to be throwing your key, and then if you get impatient, you could possibly break your key. And that would not be a good thing. So will that get better with time? Will, you know, as you use them, will it get to where it's second nature and it's easy pop on and off? That's possible. But I like things to be intuitive. You guys know me. It's not intuitive. You have to think about it, and you have to go through the process in the proper sequence to get them to attach and to get them to unattach and to get them to open properly. So that's one of those things that, you know, it's just a quirky kind of thing. That's all. The other quirky kind of thing that is on there, and it's also going to be, you know, one of the Achilles heels that I'm going to talk about, is the belt. You know, having a belt, you know, is kind of weird. It ain't kind of weird. It's doggone weird on an adventure motorcycle. Every adventure motorcycle I've ever ridden is one of two things, right? You either have a chain drive or you'll have a drive shaft. And that's just the way it is. So to have a belt is kind of a quirky decision. Now, it may be one that is required due to the length of the belt on the Spyder. It may be required, and it does have the belt guard. But I've seen belts destroyed, and if your belt's destroyed and you're in the middle of nowhere, you're stuck. So that's one of those things that I'm going to have to grow trust in that, because it's something I've never seen. But to me, it was just kind of a quirky thing. I didn't expect that. I expected a big chain to be back there. And so there you have that. So the quirky things are the luggage, and the belt just seems odd to me. Everything else on it seems quite intuitive. All of the mapping on your screen, all of that is very intuitive. Really nice, really beautiful display. It's going to be cool. All right, now oddities that I'm unsure of. Of course, we've all watched on social media people out riding the canyon, and it looks cool and it looks fun. But I'm not seeing guys do what I'm going to do on it if I have the privilege of riding one. I'm going to ride the darn thing, man. I'm going to put it on trails with rocks and streams. We're going to take it out in the day. It's going to be an adventure bike. That's what it's going to be. And I plan on putting it out there and putting it through the test. You know, that's what it's designed to do, and I'm designed to do it on it. But the idea of the suspension, I'm curious how the suspension, especially off camber, how things are going to behave. So it's not something that's a weak point or a strong point or a quirk. It's a curiosity to see when you're off camber how that suspension, your rebound, right, and all of that stuff comes into play. I really do want to see how that's going to feel and what it's going to do at slow speed, high speed, and when you go through, like, say, a stream or something like that. I think that's going to be one of those things that I really look forward to seeing how well or how poorly the design works. I don't expect it to be poor, though. Anybody who's ridden in a truck that has an independent suspension, it is quite capable up front with those A-arms. It can do a lot. So I look forward to doing that, and I look forward to seeing what it feels like off camber. It's going to be super cool. Now, obviously, another kind of oddity is that you can't ride a real tight single track, because your back tire would be in the single track and your front tires would be out in the bushes hitting logs and sticks. So it's going to have to be double track or a very wide trail that's going to allow you to do it. So you're going to have to choose wisely as to what you're going to do. But there are things that, you know, I think that could even be more easily done on the Can-Am that could be done on a two-wheeler. Something with a lot of rocks where it's throwing you in different directions. Streams that are less than 10 inches deep. 10 inches deep is deep on a motorcycle, and you can't really see the bottom, so you have things that can throw you side to side. So I think the Can-Am is going to have some true advantages in certain areas. I really do. But the idea that it's wide, that's kind of a quirky thing too. All right, now for me to address the third point, and this is what I would consider the possible Achilles heels. You know, I've spoken about the elephant in the room a couple of times. That's the belt. You know, the belt, and I'm going to even go further than that. The belt, and I'm going to say the rear sprocket. The rear sprocket sticks out. You know how it sticks out on a Spyder? Well, it sticks out on this as well. And if you're going through an area that has rocks, high rocks, you could possibly hit that sprocket on a rock. And if you hit that sprocket on a rock and it broke that belt, you're stuck. I mean, you are stuck, because that thing's 1,000 pounds. And if you're 20 miles out in the boondocks, you're going to be hard freaking pressed getting it out of there, at least without a spare belt. So if I was going to go into real desolate areas, I would actually want to have a spare belt on hand. Yes, on hand. So maybe that's overreactionary, but I think that it's necessary. All right, so the sprocket and the belt, I think, are definitely weak points, and you're going to have to watch that. The next weak point, I would say, is the skid plates, or lack thereof. So the skid plates, let's talk about those. You've got, you know, a skid plate up front, and you've got virtually no skid plates below, down where your frame rail is. Now, some of that frame railing looks like that it can be, you know, the frame railing on my Tiger, it's in sections, and so if you break or bend a section of your frame, you can take that off and you can replace it. It looks like this is designed kind of that way. Everything looks kind of modular when you get up under it. So I'm going to be curious to see how protected it is on a real aggressive trail, or if they're going to say, hey, don't take it on anything that aggressive. I don't know, but they're going to have to create bash plates, not just a little skid plate that's going to take you over some sand. You need something. There's a rock that's, well, it's about that big around, and those rocks are called baby heads, and you're going to have something that's strong enough to go over a baby head and come slamming up into the bottom of it. You know, I'm going to tell you, the European motorcycles, the BMW and the Triumph, which are both premium motorcycles, they all come with skid plates. But the first thing you do, you take that stupid skid plate they put on there and you throw it in the garbage, because it ain't worth the crap. So even the high-end adventure bikes have the same problem. You have to purchase an aftermarket skid plate that's going to be heavy. So I'm going to be curious to see if the Le Monsters and the Spyder folks are going to design some skid plates for this. I hope they do. And I would love to see a skid plate for that rear sprocket and to go around that belt. Something that really, really makes that thing bulletproof back there, because you know, you're gonna, if you're riding like an idiot like I plan on doing, you have the opportunity to break stuff. So to see some real serious skid plates, I think would be an awesome thing, and not just the skid plate on the bottom, but something also to protect. So some real skid plates for it. I would like to see real skid plates, not just a little piece of metal down there that, you know, as long as you don't hit anything big, you're not going to have a problem, but real stuff. The other thing I think that is a weak point for adventure riders is the foot pegs. Again, aftermarket foot pegs aren't a big deal, but I think you're going to have something that has more presence, more mechanical presence that your feet are going to be on. If you're standing up and you're in wet, messy, muddy conditions, your feet will slide off of those rubber grommets, and that's a real problem. You don't want that to happen. Ground clearance is actually not bad on it. I'll drop the number right up in here. It's significant though. It has good ground clearance. Is it as big as an adventure motorcycle? Yes, it is. It's as high, I believe, every bit as high as the BMW GS, which is, you know, $35,000 adventure motorcycle. Look, these things aren't cheap. So I'm telling you, 32 grand for the Red Rock, 33 grand, whatever it is, it's right in that ballpark. No, it's not cheap. But it is not out of its league, man. That is not an unreasonable price in today's market for an adventure, for a premium adventure motorcycle. And yes, that includes one that has to have new skid plates put on it. Like I said, you're gonna have to do that stuff. I think the electronics package is really cool on there, which is a good thing. The backup camera, is it necessary? I think it could be kind of cool. But, you know, do I need it? Not really. I use my mirrors and my neck, you know. But who knows, in 5 years I may feel different about that if my neck's so stiff, can't turn my big old fat head anymore. All right, the other thing other than bash plates are protection for the front end of the CanAm. Real heavy protection of lights, headlights, all of that stuff. I'd like to see more protection, because those are things that as you're riding, rocks are getting slung up and crap's hitting you. I mean, you break a headlight and it can be real expensive. So those things, you know, scratches I don't worry about. That's part of the adventure world. But, you know, the braking stuff is a problem. All right, well, before we wrap up, do me a favor, give the video a big old fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, all that jazz. So my final thoughts on the CanAm Canyon Red Rock Edition. Here's my final thoughts. I want one. Now, I love this sea to sky. And if BRP lovingly decides to let me ride again as an ambassador next year, I'm going to make it public right now that I want the CanAm Canyon Red Rock Edition. I want the big baby boy, and I want to run it through its paces. And I don't want BRP to be upset with me for actually taking it out there and beating the hockey snot out of it, because that's what I fully intend on doing if I am so blessed to get one. Now, you know, in the world of ambassadors, you know, I'm not guaranteed ambassadors year to year. You can put a comment down below if you've hung around this long. Put a comment down below going, BRP, keep Coach Bob on so we can ride that canyon, and let us know if we should buy one. Because I would really like to have an opportunity to ride one. Will I buy one? Possibly. You know, this is one of those things that, you know, I would have to, I got to ride one first though. So it would be one of those things that I would want to get it out on a trail. So when they have demos and demo days, I will definitely be doing demo days, even if I don't have the opportunity to ride one, you know, via the channel and that sort of thing, where I have it long term. But the darn thing, I love the way it looks. It's got that kind of military Jeep Willys aggression to it, while having the European styling cues. I mean, I think they really struck up a great balance on this thing, and I really look forward to riding one. All right, well, be sure and share your thoughts down below, and you know I would greatly appreciate it. But until next time, I want you to do me a favor. Yes, you, go out, buy the motorcycle of your dreams, eat right, take care of yourself, and remember, if you're not having fun, you are most definitely doing it wrong. Now you go get you a Canyon Red Rock Edition and tell me how you love it, because I really can't wait to try to ride one. It's going to be awesome. All right, go seize the day. I'll see you on the road real soon.